Welcome to episode 1
Yes.
of our new show. She is Lais, and I am the coach, and that is the name of our show.
First of all, if there's ever been a time for personal bubble, this is
We will always stay true to what we do. What you're doing is going to get you to the next place.
Right.
Throw the list away. It's only a matter of time before you cave.
You can look way better than you used to.
Such a great experience.
Well, like it knows everything you've given.
Shown curiosity.
What if it actually works?
I've been chopped down como persona.
100%.
An extra vitamin.
City right now. Sometimes it is a member.
Welcome, everybody. Peace out, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to Lais and The Coach. It is late this evening, and tonight we have probably the longest running We've Got to Get You on the Show guest ever. I know that it is a tough climate in our world, and we are approaching an important moment. And tonight we might be discussing if Ric Flair or John Cena are ultimately the best. But I don't know if we can go there because it's tense.
Yeah, it is.
But welcome, Ed, from Brews Beats and Eats.
Yeah.
We have a very parallel trajectory. We go back more than a decade. I think 13, 14 years.
Easily.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ed used to come to our boot camps when we lived in South Florida before we got onto this gypsy lifestyle that we lived. And I remember way back when I started my podcast, he mentioned wanting to dive into the world of podcasting, and I was like, you should do it. And one day out of the nowhere, he's like, I started my podcast.
And it's so awesome.
And it is
Hey,
cool.
thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll get to it down the line, but I've since gone on to have 3 different podcasts happening at the same time. That's not the case right now, but yeah,
I can't wait to dive into that.
Yeah, it took a life of its own. Ralph, you're absolutely correct. The conversations were had in between sessions of between stations of workouts. We would start talking about whatever we were listening to at the time as far as podcasts. And at the same time, I had the idea right around the same time you were getting started with yours. And then when you put me onto the app that made everything simple for someone starting off, that had no excuse. I had been telling the family that I had this interest in doing a podcast, and I kind of had come up with the formula for it, give or take. And the only thing I was missing was equipment. Now, granted, this was a while back, and the technology did exist in a sense where you could put something together on a laptop, but on a budget, it's like, what do I do? When you put me onto the fact that you could just download an app on the phone, I had no excuse. The same conversations that were had when family would see me, be like, hey, when is the podcast coming out? What are you doing? I was like, now I couldn't say, oh, well, hold on, I'm trying to work out the technical logistics of it. Nah, that excuse was out the window. So I was like, all right, I'm jumping into it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's start with the title, like Brews Beats and Eats. How did you decide to go and start having an ongoing conversation about beer, music, and food?
Excellent question. So it's interesting, in kind of coming up with ideas for a podcast in general. There was a couple of ones that I floated prior to landing on this one. A lot of them seemed like they were, X-centric, like they were just strictly this. Like I had an idea to start an audio book club where a group of friends would get together, pick out one CD, back when they made CDs, and everybody would listen to it for whatever time, 3 days or 5 day a week, whatever, and we'd come back and discuss, what we most liked, what we didn't like, so on and so forth. But I felt like that was very niche. It was very, single centric kind of thing. So eventually, right around the same time, I had met people who were kind of putting me on to the world of craft beer. Beers beyond just the stuff that you find at Publix, which even now Publix is involving a lot of these beers.
Big time.
So time has changed. So I was kind of gaining an interest in that. We're making it a weekly occurrence to get together at a World of Beer, which they had the biggest selection at the time. And my thing was, you have a loyalty, you have a how do you say, an app for the place, the loyalty points, whatever, and then it kind of tracks the different beers you have. So every time we got together, it was like I want to try at least 2 or 3, rack up as many as I can, trying them. So I started saying, all right, well, I'm kind of learning my way through this. At the same time, I have a love for hip hop music. You know this. One of my, my favorite sessions at the boot camp was when you threw on the Wu-Tang playlist,
Old
or
school.
the Tribe Called Quest, or yeah, like that was good. Like I didn't mind all the other music, and it definitely served the purpose. The high energy, club, was dope, but it wasn't my music, and that was good. I made sure I got the work in,
For
but
sure.
just those days hit different when it was like when I heard the bass line that I was familiar with,
You're
or
like,
whatever it was.
it's
Yeah, I
on.
was like, yeah, this is it. So, and then I figured, it's like the rule of threes. It's you're gonna wanna. I don't know if it's bad luck not to do it this way. But I figured, all right, what's the third thing? And we all enjoy food, some more than others. So I figured, all right, well, I'm gonna combine these three. It's funny enough, before we got on the camera, I was talking about my friend and his wife who live in Hawaii. Um, when they were just dating and they would travel, they were living, I think, in New Mexico or New York at the time, New York at the time, and they would travel to Miami. He's originally from Miami. He would have get-togethers. When he was down, he'd rent out a house on 17th Street River, and he would have get-togethers. Since you haven't seen people in a while, bring everybody together. Um, he would put together flyers for like this get-together. It's a small group of people. It's not like he's putting out. It's just people he hasn't seen in a while. And one of the flyers said, "Come through for Brews Beats and Eats," because they were gonna have music, they were gonna have some beers, you go hang out. So that stuck with me. That stuck with me. And then sometime, this is years later, now I'm working out on a regular basis with you guys. And then I'm like, all right, I think I'm just gonna put this thing together, call it Brews Beats and Eats, and go from there. I mean, that it helped out to have that, because it kind of like segmented the show, and it kind of gave me rails to ride on. It kind of gave me a formula. So it took a lot of the guesswork as to what to put forth in these episodes. I always say it, and you see it if you follow me on IG or my bio. It says a show where a not so interesting host
Yeah.
interviews interesting guests. So I figured I'm not gonna carry a podcast by myself. Ralph, I don't know how you manage, and you would do it everywhere on walks. It was wild, but so like I have to have somebody to push this forward, and someone to give these beers to. Because what I would do is, and you guys were guests in the past.
Right.
I'd have 4 beers for the guests to try, and that would kind of set things off, and
I remember
open up
that.
conversation. Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, and so that's how Blues Beast and East came to be.
I gotta tell you, I
love
love Genesis stories.
Mm,
Like the
of
the
course.
the name popping up at a
Mm,
get
I was
together.
literally gonna say something
Like,
like that.
I love stories like that because
yeah,
things like that happen so often and people
true.
miss it, and
Mm-hmm.
they dismiss them.
Yeah.
And I think that when you can go through the story and it's like, man, I remember that name from that thing, and it becomes something that
Yeah.
is so cool, so cool.
I feel like things like that happen to all of us on a daily basis, but most people are not paying attention. Like most people are not
This is true.
just aware of anything,
This-
you know?
So
yeah.
let's start with the beginning. Did
Okay.
you go right into having guests, or did you do a couple solo episodes?
No, the first episode was guest driven. It was. I'm glad that they were willing to participate in my harebrained idea to do this. And it was actually my youngest son. Um,
Okay.
he was on spring break. He was going to UCF at the time. He went to UCF, graduated from UCF. Shouts to X, and he was home for spring break, and I was working all week. I hadn't like scheduled my work around him being there. So I decided to take the last Friday that he was going to be there. I took that day off just so we could hang out before he went back. And that Friday, typical college life, he wakes up, 12:30 in the afternoon. And I've been up for a minute. And I'm like, hey, you want to go grab something to eat? And I'm trying to remember. I think it was okay. I said, hey, would you be willing to record? Because I have an idea. I'm trying to make sure I get this right chronologically. It might have been we went to go eat something. I'm like, hey, I heard about some really good cheesesteaks out of a gas station over here in Deerfield, I think it was. And he's like, yeah, sure. He's waking up, he's hungry. So I'm like, let's go grab some cheesesteaks. We grab the cheesesteaks, we enjoy them. And at that moment, it was like, I look at him and I go, you want to record an episode? We could talk about the cheesesteaks. So we got that. We're scratching that off the list.
Okay.
The music part, I like to say that he's adapted a lot of my tastes in music, but then also has his own palette of variety of music, which is pretty interesting. And so I knew he could talk about music. And then the tricky thing was that he wasn't 21 yet. So the beer part was like, all right, how do we work around this? And I said, all right, we're gonna go to Fresh Market. They got ginger beers, they got root beers, they've got anything that had beer in the name but was not alcoholic.
Got it.
So he says, yeah, I'm down. I have to mention at the same time that he was also twitching at that point. So he was streaming on Twitch, playing video games. So he also was able, to talk into a device. So I was like, all right, cool. So we get back to the house with all our everything we need. And we sit down on a small table in his room, the one that he used part-time. And I was like, all right. And then I put my phone in between us, set off that app, and we just started talking. And yeah, so from the very beginning, it was it's been guest driven for sure.
That's awesome. So over how long have you been running the podcast now?
Okay, so I want to say the first episode it's tricky. I want to say 2018. I feel like it's 2018. That sounds about right. March of 2018. So it's been since then that I've been doing that podcast. Within the last year or so, I've kind of fallen back because within, I say, the last year and a half, opportunities were presented to me, and I created some opportunities too.
Okay.
Where I convinced people to get behind the microphone and like, hey, let's talk about something, or let's talk about this, or let's make it a little more focused on this. And then I was also invited to do another one. So that one's kind of falling back. It's like I've neglected the baby for sure. Okay. I know this for sure. So but it's not done with. Like I bring it back. It's just more selective, like maybe once a month or a couple of weeks, depending on scheduling with people to sit down with me.
Of course. So here's my question. Mm-hmm. Over the years, podcasts or no podcasts, regardless, how have you noticed the food scene changing?
Okay.
Specifically, because we'll keep it to South Florida because we've been known to live in that area too. But because we have our opinions on it. But how have you noticed the food scene changing down there? And we could limit it to, because I got to tell you, when you said gas station cheesesteak, my spidey senses went up because we are notorious for finding restaurants inside gas stations.
You put me onto a couple.
Okay.
Let's not say we, it's him.
I am. Literal, if there's a restaurant inside a gas station, I'm like, this place has got to be a hit.
It's
I'm always
interesting.
him on it.
Yeah. Did you give her the "I told you so" after it's all said and done?
We are 8, 9.
Oh my God! But you know what though?
So let me tell you something before.
But it's evolved so much. Like he's got this gift of finding places. Like I don't even know how to explain it. I know that it might even sound silly because people are like, yeah, everybody can find a good restaurant, especially nowadays on Instagram and stuff like that. But it's a literal gift, and he does it I don't know what process he does. And I'm always like, how do you do it? Because it isn't just elaborate restaurants. I want you to tell the story, but even yesterday, I was like, I want sushi. And he's like, give me a minute. I got it. And I'm like, what? How? And we walked into the most authentic hole in the wall. Everybody in there was Japanese. The menu was in Japanese. it was I'm a massive sushi lover. Like when I did your podcast, like that's my favorite food. It was the best. And
Well, to tell you, we sat down. She's like, "This is my new favorite place." She hadn't even eaten yet.
they don't even have like real alcohol. It's like super chill. It was the best.
Okay.
And then today we went back because I'm that person. I'm like, if I love something, I'm gonna go for like 4 or 5 days straight till I like need a break. And I'm like, what would be really good right now? A coffee. And he's like, hold on, I got it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And we ended up in the cutest, best coffee ever. And I'm like, I don't know how he does it, but it's a gift, whether we want to do something elaborate or unique or whatever. But even with that, even though I know it's his gift, I struggle with it because sometimes he goes overboard. And it's like, I get weirded out by it. I'm like, this can't be like, come on. Cause I honestly genuinely feel like one of these days he's going to take it too far. And I'm going to be like, see, like, there's a line, like you have to like but it hasn't happened yet. But
Okay. No, seems like Ralph is batting 1,000 right now. So
She was like 6 months pregnant or more.
yeah.
And we were at this aquarium that day. And I'm like, she's hungry. And I'm looking for places. I'm like, bum, bum, bum. I'm like, great, got it.
And we told the story on his podcast, but not on ours.
And we're down in Coral Gables. And there was this one place that I'd been wanting to go to, Coral Gables, inside the shell. And we get to this.
Before you go, really quick, I was a first-time mom, so I wasn't eating any of the things you're not supposed to eat, which now I would totally eat all of them, right? Except for maybe the sushi. But I was like, I can't eat anything at this aquarium. They only have hot dogs, and I'm not supposed to be eating. What is this stuff? No, not hot. Yeah, whatever they put in lunch.
the nitrites that come in it, yeah.
I'm supposed to eat lunch meat. I'm like, and I'm starving and I'm pregnant and his family's in town. So we're walking this whole fucking park. And I'm like, I'm so done with being here and being hungry. And I can't eat anything here, even though I could have. And then he wanted to go to this gas station.
I'm like, I've been wanting to go here. It's 10 minutes away.
I'm like, you took me from one place to have a hot dog and another. Like, I can't.
We parked and she's like, what are you doing? I said, we're eating here. She's like, here, we're eating here. If I tell you that we've been back 10 times,
The best.
it's probably more than 10.
A lot, at least 20. But the thing is, it's like he keeps doing that, right? Like he loves speakeasies. So a lot of times, like I'll think I'm in one place and then I end up walking through a Coke machine or whatever. But it's like, we love the food scene. And so back to the question.
Back to the
How has
question.
it-
So the
How have
question.
you seen it change since let's keep it to the podcast. So since you started the podcast.
Okay, excellent question. And it's funny because the way I've seen it change is that implementing beer and kind of becoming a fan of craft beer and then tapping into the craft beer scene with the breweries that have popped up in so many years here, I've noticed that there's a lot more food pop-ups. When people ask me about food recommendations, it's not so much restaurants I can shoot at their way. I could tell them, yo, but there's a really good pop-up. Like, if you want a smash burger, this is who you need to go see. And so it's changed in the sense that people with really good quality food have gone from gas stations to even just setting up a tent outside of a brewery with a couple of flat griddles and just start putting together birria tacos, smash burgers, whatever have you. There's ramen spots that pull up to some of these breweries. So it's interesting to see that at least my interaction with food has gone in the direction where it's like you're finding great food in places that are not always there, or that
Right.
they're mobile. Like they might be there one day, they might not be there another day. So I think that's like the most interesting thing that I've noticed. And like, again, when people say, hey, you got a podcast, it's Brews Beats and Eats, where do I go eat at? And I was like, well, today's Wednesday, so if you feel like having this, you might want to go, it becomes
They might be there, they might not.
Yeah. They might be sold out,
Like that's the other thing too. It's like you get there when you get there, So I think that's been the biggest change, because I mean, chains are chains. Restaurants that have the names, the ones that you're used to, like that never goes away, but it never gets good or it never gets better. If you caught one at the very beginning, at the inception of its opening, you probably had the best they had to offer. Unless, they decide to do like a revamp and, they bring in new, managers and they kind of delve into a better menu. But that's few and far between. People like, hey, they're coming in. Why should we change things from this point? We just keep pushing this out. So I think that's been the biggest change, at least for me, when it comes to food. I'll try anything, for the most part, within reason.
Within reason.
Yeah, within reason. I still can't get myself to try to enjoy or even attempt liver.
I hate liver.
And it's because of the deception. There's a lot of deception that happens. Like when they put a piece of liver in front of you, onions or not, you're looking at it like, this is a steak. Like this is something I am gonna dig into. And you cut into it, and that first moment, it's like this is not a steak. And it
tastes like cheese, and you're basically eating a filter that's dirty. So no, thank you.
Let me ask you this: what's your take on food halls?
Food halls, convenient, very convenient. I guess it's tough because there's been some here that have opened up and closed down. You'd think that there would be a lot more competition in pricing in these spots, but they all kind of like float around the same price. The quality of food is not. I haven't been to a spot where I was like, oh my God, this one, like the people making this here, I have to keep coming back to this one. To me, it seems real novelty. I'm like, I'm here because there's a brewery over here, and then look, they make tacos, authentic tacos, and you have a couple of those, and it's like, all right, really good. I'm content, but it's not something where it's like, I can come back. I mean, I'll give them a go. The convenience is pretty cool because you kind of order from your table.
The variety.
Yeah, and the variety, you order from your table, they bring it to you, and it's smooth.
We've been to a couple food halls up here, and we've found some really, really good food being cooked in how much space do you think they get? Like,
which one are you referring to?
Well, the one in Winter Garden, the one that had remember that we went, they had the sushi place, but we ended up getting pizza, tacos.
Is that the one that has the brewery in it?
Yes.
The crooked can? The crooked can? Okay, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like we have found that a lot of these food halls have these little kitchens, and they're dishing out some really good food. A couple weeks ago, we were in Miami. We went to Julian Henry's.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah. So, that's a solid one.
We had like at first it's overwhelming because it's aesthetically pleasing, right? It's like you walk in and it's like there's a vibe in there. So we had pasta on the second floor. We had the dumplings I think it's on the second floor also. We got some Peruvian food from the third floor.
It was crazy. And you walk in through all those desserts. I'm like, how do I pick?
The bar, we didn't have any drinks, but
we were work, and it was like, let's not do that. We went for lunch. We ended up there by accident because we were actually going to Carrot Express.
Right.
We were actually no. We were actually going to Chicken Kitchen because they don't have Chicken Kitchen up here, and I love that curry sauce. And we walked in there, and it was flies all over the fucking lettuce. And I was like, no. Let's go to Carrot Express. So we went to Carrot Express. We walk over, and we were like, this is not really what I want. And then he's like, I got it. So then we walk into this food hall. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? We have an hour before we got to be at this show. There was a show that day. But it was overwhelming because we were also in a rush.
We were hungry. And then we were hungry, which is a bad idea at a food hall. But it was, impressive. It's 3.
I loved it there.
So we're like, well, let's go look around first. And now we're like walking around, looking at every single spot. And then everything looked great.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of food halls. Like, we've been to a couple of here. I don't love any of them. I feel like if you're that good, you would have your own restaurant, even if it's a small little place. We were actually just at a food hall the other day, or just an area. Yeah, it was a food hall. And it was so good, but they were actually moving into their own restaurant right across the street. They got their space. So it's like, even if you have a small space, right?
It's definitely an easy entry point.
Exactly.
And I think it's a great way to almost like prove your concept.
Yeah, but that one in Miami was a vibe, an experience. Like, I feel like all those places could have their own restaurant and still should be in that food hall, just for this,
Yeah.
for advertising. I don't know, like.
Now,
Correct.
next question is, how do you find that the brewery component with the food has become more of a community type thing than just drinks?
Definitely.
Like, is it one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially lately, is the need for community, right? Like
Hmm.
everybody has their group. Is that like a thing? Is there like a community of people that just
Like
Oh
brewer.
yeah, definitely. That's so it's funny. The podcasting is a straight hobby. I got a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 4. um, and this is just something for me to do, kind of take up my time, get involved with people, get to know people and their story. And the one thing that people are like, oh, wait, but 2018, if that's the number 2018, like, oh, so you making money? Like, is YouTube's going? Like, and I was like, actually, no. I've definitely put more money into it than I've gotten out of it. But what you do get out of it is community, definitely. You find yourself in places with people that have a lot in common with you. And to the point where I've made very good friendships and I felt comfortable enough around people where we've planned beercations. Like we've gone to several states where and just kind of went around and tried all the different breweries. And we did this with like the same group of people, about 6 or 7 of us. Airbnb, go to a place, get there, and we had like our itinerary. Shouts to the people who were like really focused on doing that. That's why I never argued about price when it came to anything. How much do I have to put for the rental car? Okay, how much was it? Don't worry about it. What's my issue on the Airbnb? I don't care. You guys did the hard lifting of figuring out, okay, well, this brewery's here, and then we're gonna go to this one and maximize time. We'll stop here. It's amazing what they do. So yes, the level of community is unparalleled. I always say this that I've been fortunate that you think when this much drinking involved and going from one place to the other that there'd be 1 or 2 people that are like, all right, a little out of control with the drinking. I have not experienced that with our group. And it is definitely a level of community. Like I said, everybody goes in with the same um, interest of like, oh wait, they have beers that don't just taste like Heineken, Stella, Budweiser, whatever. There's different styles of beer, and even not even like liking the same beers also creates more conversation in community or getting people to try different things. Actually, the second podcast that I got into is called Beer Pressure. Um, I started that with 2 friends who I met through the beer scene. It happened to be a bottle share. Now, a bottle share is when a group of people get together, everybody brings a bottle, not a Heineken bottle, but a bottle of something like a craft beer, or it could be a 16-ounce can, something that it's not normally seen. Or you can go to Total Wine and you can grab out stuff that just
Right.
piques your interest and you're like, oh, I'd like to try this, and I think I could share this with people. So and I think I'm bouncing all over the place, but so that's how I met these 2 friends that eventually became friends. I got invited to a bottle share. I met them there. It's funny because back to origin stories, there was a place called the Craft Beer Cellar located outside of Wilton Manors, just along Federal, south of Oakland Park. It was on a little strip, right by I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Egg and You diner.
Yeah.
Okay, in that same plaza, and had a nice outdoor area. It looked out onto the like a canal, real nice. And they would have beers of all type. And they would have beers on tap, and then they also would have their coolers where you can grab beers out of there, take them with you. Anyway, so that was where the bottle share happened. About a year later, like I've gotten to know these people better, and I find out that that place offered a beer advent calendar. So yeah, so leading to Christmas to December that year, I found out that myself and my 2 other friends, Michelle and Lewis, shouts to them, they were gonna buy. Michelle had already purchased one a year before, and she said good things about it. So Lewis and I were like, "Hey, you want to go? We'll buy each buy one." And like, "Yeah, sure." So the day we go to reserve or pick up our advent calendars, Here goes the guy with the microphone set up and all of that. Hey, you guys want to talk about these beers while we drink them? So it's a beer per day up until Christmas. And we decided at first, I was like, all right, let's just do this to Zoom because it's going to be hard for us to get together every day to crack a beer open. So we started doing that through those 24 days. Sometimes we had to skip a day, and there'd be episodes where we were drinking 3 beers or 3 episodes in one day, which you could just imagine what the 4th episode would be like after those beers. But we went back to that place, did our last episode there, and we were kind of like, this was too much fun. Why should this end? And as we're just talking there, we're sitting there, we're also kind of like spitballing ideas as to how do we keep this going? What do we call it? And coming up with different like taglines and phrases that we'd like to use. And then that grew from there. Since Craft Beer Cellar has closed since then, unfortunately, but we still ride out, and we got like 82 episodes in. I think we just dropped episode 82. I don't know. By the time this airs, probably last week, we should be on 83.
So funny
I love
there
that.
was something that you said at the beginning, and you kind of brought it back up, and I want to touch on it quickly. It's like podcasting isn't as easy as people might think it is, because there's a lot of things to coordinate, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and I don't know if you saw the other day I posted, it's like most podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so shout out to all your, like, you're in the top 1%.
Yes, I made it.
Yeah.
But I
Even
made it.
it was like not this one, right?
Right.
Like
It's
you're
like-
spur of the moment.
But
Yeah.
I don't think that people realize like the amount of logistics that sometimes have to go into even something that's a hobby.
Yeah.
Have you
It's true.
found what was the hardest podcast for you to pull
Wow. Okay. The most difficult one. Man, I'm trying to. I don't know if there was a difficult one. There was definitely times, and it might come back to me as I kind of walk through this story here. There's definitely a couple times where I had scheduled to do this. We're about to do this, and there was like the slightest hiccup, and I would get that feeling of like, should I push through with this? Should I just call it like maybe some other time? Hey, that type of thing. And it didn't happen too often where I kind of like canceled it. I pushed through, and I found out that those turned out to be some of the best ones.
Okay.
You got the most out of it, whether it was information, whether it was the connection you made. Another thing, going back to like not getting paid for podcasts, what do you benefit from it? I mean, we've been fortunate. I've been fortunate that it got to the point where you give people enough. They like the banter. They'll always either recommend someone else for you to sit down and talk to. Eventually, you meet somebody like a home brewer who, when you tell them you want to interview with them, and they surprise you. This happened to me. They surprise you when you go to interview them, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna brew a beer with you today."
I love that.
And you're like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, it's gonna take a couple hours, but we can talk. Once we get the beer going, we could talk, and then so on and so forth." Like going forward to like putting it in cans and all that other stuff was really cool experience. People that really mess with the show, and they'll be like, "Hey, here's some beers you could use for your next episode." Breweries that have opened their doors for me to record there. It's those things that it's like there's not a monetary amount you could put on it, but it's like, what's the chances that I would have? Yes, what I wouldn't have been doing this. Like I wouldn't have gotten this if I was just chilling.
Yeah, and it's also things that you probably couldn't have bought anyway. Like what would it cost to get the brewer to brew a beer with you and let you, like, a lot of things that don't, and a lot of times it's the conversation. A lot of times it's, who do you connect with on the other side? Like, who's listening? Where does it lead?
We always say that abundance comes in many forms.
For
And
sure.
people is only looking at it like financial or trend, like
Right.
a specific like
It's the algorithm paying, right? It's like,
and it's so much more than that. Especially if obviously if this is a hobby for you, then it's the things you're talking about are things you personally enjoy, right? So it's like you get to go do the thing you like, which is food and breweries and beer and music, and like those are your interests. Like how cool that you got to have these in-depth experiences with people that share that also. Like that's really like so valuable.
So do you find that the conversations are like even? Like, is it 30% or 33.33% brews, 33 and a third
Uh,
beats and eats,
yeah, no,
or does it
no.
lean more?
Yeah, well, I mean, the what the guest does and their and you know what they do and the story that they tell kind of will direct which segment lasts longer than others. I've had producers, I've had MCs, and of course they're gonna sit more heavy in the music portion of it. Not everybody is a big craft beer head, so they're trying this out for the first time. It's you're getting the usual suspect drinkers, right? I like call the usual suspects, like the ones that everybody knows. So you have those people, and it's like that kind of like makes that part short. I've sat down with people who cook. And then so the food segment goes pretty long. That's another thing too. If and I wish I could have capitalized more on getting like the food people to come through because everybody wants to feed you. Like, like, like here, try these. I've met real good people, make connections like people who were also running the kitchen out of a brewery down in Doral. And their thing was croquetas. So when I went to interview them down at the brewery, they set aside an area at the brewery for us to sit down, and then we're sitting there talking. They provided the beers, and they provided a sample platter of different croquetas, different styles with different accompanying dipping sauces. So it's like
Nice.
it's like, yo, this
Nice.
is great.
That's
I
awesome.
wish I would have capitalized. Oh, and then recently, off the strength of beer pressure, we got invited to a pizza and beer pairing at a local brewery here in Fort Lauderdale. Shouts to Gulfstream and shouts to Pizzeria Magadino. They do once a week. They do pizza beer pairings, and it's a small group, 6 people. And you guys come over. We'll take care of it. We'll cover the cost. And so we went, and that was a great experience. So did I get your question? I think I could. I don't know if
Yeah,
that was.
and there's another element there because I'll it's rarely the thing that the host talks about, but we talk about it a lot. It's like the business owner, the person making the beer or the person making the food doesn't really have time to create content, and content is so valuable, right?
Yes.
So anytime you can have somebody that's going to come interview you about your thing, it's
Yeah.
freaking gold because
Yeah.
you can always reutilize that for anything, and
Everyone needs it.
it gives you an opportunity to showcase your stuff to somebody else's audience. And I think
True.
it's an underrated asset that a lot of times when you're, again, if you're at a pop-up or at a food hall, maybe you're recording, maybe you're going live on IG, maybe you're going live on YouTube, but are you making regular content? And is somebody on the other side asking you the questions that might be the ones that you don't even think of because you're not getting interviewed? So I think a lot of times the podcast format is such a valuable tool for the person or the business being interviewed because it does provide usable content that can be repurposed in so many ways.
Yeah, we all need eyeballs, right? Like every business needs eyeballs, and that's literally like content is king in that sense, where it's like there's not enough eyeballs. Any kind of content is going to bring you more eyeballs.
Now, have you done an episode where you review regular beers? Like, have you done a Miller Lite, Coors Light?
No, I can't say that I mean,
Fuck that shit.
that's yeah, I don't know. The interesting thing is that I mean, I don't know how quality. That's another thing too. I think sort of the appeal of what I do as far as or where I'm involved with podcasts and the beer side of it is that I'm not coming from a scientific place. I am gonna this is what I like, this is what I don't like. I might use some clever words that I've learned as I've gone, or like descriptions as to what it tastes like. But it's not very scientific. And I'm learning at the same time. So I think that people gravitate to the fact that it's like, this is just someone
Genuine.
it's like there's not an overwealth of knowledge, but we're figuring it out together. I say that to answer your question, which is everybody has their ideas as to what Miller Lite tastes like, what this tastes like, and they probably have their preferences too. So I don't know if it'd be very beneficial for me to be like, oh, and definitely Dos Equis is better than Miller Lite. You know,
Do we even consider that a beer?
yeah, that's see, Lais, you said it. I didn't say it.
We don't want to
was
get
me.
political on this show, so.
No, no.
But
There's
with that,
plenty
let's
other shows.
segue. My next question is going to be like, what is, if you could pick, because I'm notorious for questions like this,
You're
but
like, it depends.
if you could pick favorite beer of all time.
Compared to what? No, that's one of
You
one of
There you-
words right
Hey,
back
you've been
at
watching the show, like
if I had to pick a favorite beer, I'm gonna
a
go
solo beer, like no food, just beer.
just beer. Okay. Man, so definitely the beer style I guess I'll go beer style first. I'm a fan of red ales, ambers, cream ales are good too. But man, yeesh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to
If
settle
you could have
on.
any beer right now, which one would you have?
So it's funny you say that because right now I'm in the midst of sober October.
So you're like, all of them. I would
midway
have.
through.
Water. Yes.
You're midway through.
Yes, yes. But if I had to have one right now, okay.
What are you having
uh,
November 1st?
Excellent question. I'm gonna be driving long distance November 1st. I got myself into a situation, but November 8th, I will be doing Drink Around the World at Epcot.
Oh,
So that's
there
happening.
you go.
That's happening. Yeah,
Okay,
but I would tell
favorite
you,
beer.
say again.
Favorite beer.
We're not gonna let it go.
Okay, no, favorite beer. If I had to have a beer right now, it would be from Pompano Beach Brewing, and it's their toasted coconut cream ale.
Wow.
Wow.
Man, this thing, it's now people will argue and say, I want beer flavored beer. It's not like you're gonna get coconut flavor, but it's not like a sweetness overload. Some people just don't like even the slightest sweetness in their beer. I don't mind it. But it's just, I mean, the way that they put together this beer, like we've interviewed the brewer and how, he introduces, coconut into the beer. If that's got to be one of my like, yeah, if that's the one, because it's very smooth drinking. It's not like a high ABV. So even if I were to like fall off the sober wagon with this sober October thing, I mean, anyone will hit me at this point. It's like 16 days, but um, it's it's definitely lower ABV. So you're like right around 5.5, which is maybe closer to 6, which is a little higher than a Corona, Stella, so on and so forth. But it's just, I mean, it's the flavor it captures it. It's not like an overly sweet thing, but you do notice the coconut notes. It's light. It's just very easy drinking. So that would be the one.
Why sober October? You do that every year? It's like how
No,
people do
no,
dry January or whatever they do.
yeah, no, this is the first time I've done it. And it's solely because of just giving the body a chance to catch up, like just
Okay.
to
Yeah.
reset. I've done juice cleanse before, just a couple days, nothing too extravagant. In my line of business, we have to be on call. I'm on an on-call rotation, so that week is like there's no drinking anyway. I've been fortunate that I've had one of my coworkers who's really big on the on-call, and he usually like, hey, do you want it? I'll take it. So it kind of like then spreads. It brings all the beer samplings closer together. I don't get that week, so I figured, you know what, October. I don't know. I get these like I'll do these things every once in a while with like whether it's no beer or maybe stay away from meat for a month, and I mean, no rhyme or reason. Just like, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. And maybe that comes, by nature of you guys and what you guys have done for me through training, which is, hey, 6 weeks. Can you do this for 6 weeks? Why
Right.
not? Let's do it. Let's give it a go. And being able to accomplish that and seeing results and so on and so forth. I really don't need an excuse. I'm just jumping into it. And before we go too far, I don't know if I should have saved this for the end or not, but I got to give you guys the most credit because the one question I always get, it's, hey, you do a podcast called Brews, how do you stay so skinny? Like, there's no way the amount of food you eat and what you drink, like, like, damn, like how do you stay in that shape? And I was like, a lot of working out with Ralph. And getting
The
accustomed
magic,
and
the
getting
magic.
accustomed, yeah, and getting accustomed to at sometimes pushing the boundaries a little bit, or the comfort zone, that old thing, or challenging. Um, knowing that you could do it, then it's like it's easy to go back to that, or it doesn't seem so strange, or you just like you said plenty of times in the past, it's like you do something for 3 weeks, it kind of, whether you keep doing it or not, it's very easy to go back down. It becomes habitual in a sense where you will be able to pick that up no problem with the right determination and focus.
Right.
But yeah, no, definitely. I still implement, even though I love Thai foods and so on and so forth. And I won't like hold back at times when it comes to like, I will try that. I know this is probably not good for me, I'll try it. But you do it with a level of balance. And so yeah, so shouts to you guys.
I think, thank you.
Love
Thank you.
that.
I think that it's definitely one of the things that people don't realize, that you've got to look at the bigger picture sometimes, right? And it's like, if you're doing this, once a week or on the weekend, it's not going to have the same impact as
Mhm.
somebody who, 7 days a week, twice a day is eating out and having a whatever. It doesn't have to be a drink or not, but it's like, look at the bigger picture. It's like you can indulge or enjoy just about anything if
Mhm.
the percentage of that compared to the other stuff that you're doing isn't the same. It's but I
Yeah.
think that is the same for most things. No.
Yeah, and it's so funny because every time we talk to someone, we just had two clients up here from Miami that came for an immersion, and I was like, every time we talk to people from Miami from our time there, from our time at the gym, we're always like, let's go back to Miami and open another gym. It's always like, so because it was such a great time, and I agree with you. Like, it's interesting because we never got into like any of that what we planned on talking about, like how we met and all these things. But I remember January 2013 is when
Mhm.
I went to my first class of his. That's how we
Mhm.
met, right? And
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
the only person that I talked to in that class, and that's because you were like, hey, like you could do this, or you could like, here's the kettlebell. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh my God, he's so nice, because I was so confused. Not because of the class, but more like I was not a workout person. I had never
Yeah.
worked out in my life. And I was so intimidated because you get to this place and there's like so many people in this class, right? And it's like,
I know those days were so crazy.
I don't know what I was doing. There was like, what, like 40 people there?
In a parking lot
Parking, and I
at
would
Ben
pull up,
Fiorentino.
open the trunk, and be like, "Let's unload this stuff."
Yes, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I had never touched equipment or done anything. And I'm like, and I think you could tell that I was mortified. So Ed's actually been around longer than me in your life. Oh,
Yeah, no, easily 2012. I want to say right around the same time, maybe. Yeah, no, January 2012 was when I when I when I got kind of pulled into one of Ralph's classes. And I mean, I hadn't worked out at that point. I hadn't worked out. I've never been to a gym. I've never been a gym person, never been to a gym. My workouts consisted in my younger age was basketball, run up and down the court, play basketball. You end up having, get into a marriage, having kids, like that goes out the window. Like you don't have, there's definitely other things that could fill your time. Um, so again, it's a great thing to see the work that you guys done with people, the transformations, the whole next level team. That's amazing. So I go to say that I'm just like someone who's helping raise two kids, because it wasn't just me, helping raise two kids, and then kind of like it's a bit of a, you have to kind of psych yourself into it. But with that being said, there was a moment where I was introduced to like, hey, let's go do a boot camp workout. It was a Groupon. So I'm like, all right, very minimal commitment financially. I'm like, worst case scenario, if I walk away out of there with tears, like I don't have to see these people again. And it was only whatever bucks it was, like 20, 30 bucks.
yeah, same. I'm like, I don't trust myself to actually be committed to this, so I'm gonna spend the least amount of money possible because I
Yeah,
know I'm not going back. But yeah, it's so
yeah.
cool because I agree with you. Like it till this day, that's my favorite type of workout.
Mhm.
I will pick a workout like that over going to the gym, sitting on a machine any day, 100
Mhm.
times over.
Yeah.
It's just how I like to move. It's become such like So I agree with you. Even though we don't have a gym down there and you're not training with us all the time, like I agree with what you're saying. It like kind of sticks with you and you learn about the movement and the food and enough to kind of like last you through, you know, your life in a lot of
Correct.
ways.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Agreed.
Was the goal.
Yeah.
That was the goal.
That's it. That's it.
So beer doesn't go good with everything you eat, or at least I don't think so.
Okay.
What's the, I guess, what food do you enjoy to eat the most with beer?
Wow. Um, hmm. It becomes, it's definitely something that's you know, portable, handheld type of thing. I find that I don't necessarily need beer if I'm eating a plate of pasta. You know what I'm saying? With whatever protein might be included. Um, so I would say there's something about a burger and a beer. There's
Mm-hmm.
something about a burger and a beer. And especially if it's a good sized burger. I have this I have and this is not I get it if it might make me seem a little off, but I'm the type of person that I'll sit there and trust me, I was raised better. Shouts to my mom. But I'm the type where I'm like, typically when I put together, it's like if it's you order a burger, you build your own burger, it's something like hearty. And I have this thing about like once you pick up the burger, like you don't put it down until you're done with it. Like I'm holding on to it, but just to like kind of contain everything, keep
Yeah,
all
it
the
falls apart.
components. Yeah, so it's something about then just a beer, burger. I don't know, just that. I get
I love it. That's actually
that
I
movement, I
agree
guess.
with that.
Yeah, I
I
think
agree
Yeah,
with that too.
burger and
yeah,
beer.
Or like you
yeah.
said, any handheld, like maybe a taco
Yeah.
or a sandwich.
Tacos are a close second. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
tacos. Yeah, yeah.
So on the music side, what's the best concert that you've attended recently?
Wow. Oh, that's an excellent question. Excellent question. Um, Recently. Okay. Okay. Um, Damn, these are like experiences. I want to say the best, hmm, for different reasons. Okay. So back in April, um, I visited a friend in California. I have a buddy of mine who I met here in South Florida. He moved over to California. He's been there since 2017. Um, I was invited to his wedding back then, and then had been years since I've seen him over there. He's been here a couple times. He would come down this way to go catch concerts. I'm like, yo,
Okay.
Jizz is performing in Fort Lauderdale. And he's like, I'm there, So it just happened to be that I flew late April. I flew over there right around his birthday to hang out with him. And on my way there, damn, okay, on my way there, before I fly out, I'm following a buddy of mine, somebody I interviewed, a producer, talented rapper, MC. Um, I see that he's out in California. So I'm like, who better to ask about, you know, catching a show over there? Like, what's going on? Now, I don't know if he's in the same area that I'm going to be in or not, because I'm just watching his stories. So I hit him up and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be out there later this week. He'd already been there for like, I think a week and a half. If you could let me know about any shows happening, that me and the homie out there, we're into that, we'll go check it out. And he's like, oh, dude, where are you going to stay at? I'm like, north of San Fran. Okay. He's like, I don't know anything off the top, but there's always something going on. This is before I flew out like that Thursday. Might have been like a Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday that week. Fly out Thursday, get there. He hits me up Friday morning. He TS me and he's like, oh, so he was over there working with a band. He was recording a band. So he hits me up Friday morning and he's like, hey, the guys that I'm working with, they're actually performing at a casino in whatever the place was. I can't remember the name of the place. And I was like, oh, he's like, it's kind of in that area. And I was like, I'll ask the homie how far it is and so on and so forth. He's like, yeah, let me know. I got you. I'm like, yo, it's me and one more. And I don't want to ask. I don't want to,
Right.
impose. And he's like, don't worry. And he was, let me talk to the guys from the band and see. He hits me back up. He's like, yo, I got you. You and your homie. No problem. Go to will call. So we go to that Saturday comes. We end up going to a beer fest in Lodi. And then from Lodi to this casino, which I wish I could remember the name, but Lodi to this casino, maybe about 35-minute drive. 40 the most. We get there, go to will call. We meet up with him, gives us tickets just to get through the door. I'm like, so this is great. This is a great experience. I'm not. I mean, I had heard of the band before, but I wasn't familiar with their music. They're called Slightly Stupid, and it's very like easygoing reggae ska kind of type of thing, like real
Like,
mellow.
familiar.
Their name has been around for years. They're very Sublime, like a lot of people had Sublime shirts, so they're kind of in that vein.
Okay.
So we get in through the door, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, yo, he looked out. Um, he's like, yeah, come with me. So we walk around the side of the crowd backstage. All right, this is different. We go, we talk to the band members. Security's like, hey, you guys, can we get them like some credentials? Because if they're gonna be back here. And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm talking to the band about. So boom, gave us credentials. Just watched this concert from backstage. Great. So they had a great opening act. And then they came on. My buddy's hanging out there with us. He's like kind of like doing the hosting thing too. He's like, oh yeah, no. He's telling us about the band. The music is great. You see the crowd. It was wild. And that was an experience. There was a UFC fighter that showed up. Clay Guida. I'm dropping names. I don't even know what I should do. But anyway, so he shows up, and my buddy's doing the thing where he's like introducing, hey, like this is my friend, and he looks at me and he's like, you look so familiar. Like he thought I was like some guy he trained with in Arizona, and whose name also happened to be Eddie. And he's like,
No
oh,
way.
and I was like, no, that's not me, but that's cool. At least we have something to build on, That was a great experience, and that was the most. Was that the most recent? Oh, okay. Again, going back to the podcast, this is where like there's no monetary gain, but there's definitely experience gained. Like you said earlier, interviewed several times another artist from down here. I happened to be visiting my brother late mid-July in St. Louis, the same time when the guy from the group down here is going to be performing in St. Louis. Again, he gave us hey, you guys are good. We got you in the meet and greet. Come through, so on and so forth. That was a great experience. Yeah, those have been really good. One last one, and this goes back to my son being in his college days. The wildest thing I'd done for a concert was my son was first week of college. That Friday, had a slow schedule. There was an artist performing down here at Revolution Live, and I got this harebrained idea that I'm like, hey, why don't I drive up to Orlando to pick up Xavier early morning, come back down, watch Lupe Fiasco perform here at Revolution Live, and then drive him back up the next morning.
My God.
Yeah, so that was a trip. That was like just go up to Orlando, come back down from Orlando, catch the show, wake up the next morning. This time my brother was around to ride back with me to Orlando, drop him off, and then come back. So between Friday and Saturday, 2 trips back and forth
I
to
hear
Orlando.
you.
But that's so cool though.
I
Like,
know.
those are like the memorable things, right? It's like
Yes.
we all, like you
Yeah.
said, have kids and spouses and jobs and all the things, and all of that is great. Hopefully we all enjoy those because it's important. But we also have to have outside things. Like it's what we tell all of the girls that do competitions or photo shoots. It's like we all have to have hobbies. We all have to have
Yeah.
community, right? And it's like those are the stories we get to tell, right? Like if life was just one giant experience, then it's like, what story are you telling? You went to work again? Like you
Yeah.
like, dealt with your kid again? Like great. Hopefully you love your job or your business. Hopefully you have a great relationship with your kids. Like all of those things are great. They're fulfilling, but it's like they're not stories to tell, and it's
Yeah,
like we all want
sure.
stories to tell. And while that sounds exhausting, and we're probably going to do that in the next couple of days because we have Miami things happening, it's also like something you'll never forget in him too. And it becomes kind of like one of those core memories that you're like, oh my God, I did this for a concert, or I did this with my beer group or whatever.
Love all of that. What is next for Brews Beats and Eats?
All right. So it's I want to never say never. So I'm at episode 163.
Wow.
And that's with not recording a good part of this year. So that was,
Wow.
up
That's
until
amazing.
this point. Um, I'm not sure which way to go with it, but I definitely want to get to, I've given myself the goal. We're talking about goals. You guys preach goals with good reason. And I've given myself the goal of 200. So right now we're on the road to 200. What happens when I get to 200? I might be in the mind space where I'm like, good run, 200. It wasn't three. Uh, it's like I made it this far. I'm satisfied with that number. Let's put it to rest. Or I might find myself when I get to that point where I'm like, oh wait, this format works better. I mean, I'm going to keep the format, but there's things that I have in mind, and if I start implementing those, I might find that I'm like, oh, I've kind of shaped this to be like the easy, like you guys were saying earlier, putting together a podcast is not as simple as most people might think. Even with the advances in technology, where you can it kind of gives you the shortcuts, but there's still a lot that goes into it. So if I can, depending on how some of my ideas kind of play out, I might find myself when I get to 200, I'm like, oh, I've gotten this little groove where it's made things like streamline things a little bit better. Let's keep going. But I don't know for sure. So that's where that is. Beer pressure is going to keep until the other two co-hosts get tired of me. And I think I'm good with them because I'm dragging them through this NA. We've been doing NA beers for the last two episodes, so just to keep the sober October thing going. And they're right or die with it.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's so
definitely.
cool because you're right. Like we do preach goals and we all need goals, but I think a lot of times people only focus on end goals, right? And end goals are great, but it's like milestone goals are just as important, if not more important, because we change so much, things change so much. And I feel like when people get dead set on end goals, it's almost like they don't give themselves the room to change their mind or to pivot or to maneuver in a way that, like we're all so different every day, every week, every episode, every encounter. We're one thing away from thinking completely different or feeling completely different. And it's like giving ourselves the room to be able to pivot and to be able to do that. So I agree with you. Like you don't want to just throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks and kind of be aimless, because then you're just going nowhere. But at the same time, it's like, it's okay to get to the next thing and not have the ultimate thing be what's on the horizon, because that ultimate thing changes a lot. I've experienced that a lot with dream boards. Like I've made so many dream boards over the years. And by the time I'm halfway through the year, I'm like, I don't want any of this shit. Or I got some of it I changed my mind on, some of it it's not like that, right? And I read a post earlier today from a girl that I follow, and she's like, we missed by a long shot all the predictions that we made, right? And it was talking about her and her husband and how they had made this list of things, and she's like, we don't drive a Toyota, whatever, because they've become very successful, but it's one of those things where it's like sometimes the current version of us can't really see what we can do or are gonna do, but we can always see what's next. And what's next is sometimes the most important. So I'm with you. 200 episodes is a great next goal. And then see how you feel and see what unravels in the next 40 or 30, whatever episodes you have.
And with that, what do you wish more people knew about your podcast?
Where to find it? No.
We're gonna get there.
Problem solved. What do I wish people knew more about my podcast? Man, I would like to think that the listener has a lot more in common with a host than they might think. And that's me, that it's like no special hidden talents or anything like that. I can conversate with people or kind of lead them down a conversation, because even then it's like, this is different for me. I've done this a couple of times and I still can't get used to it. And I don't know, just maybe conversations made me this, like, I don't know, comfortable with the back and forth. But even if a person kind of finds that they have something in common with me, whether it's just being able to talk to people or realizing that this guy doesn't know anything about or very limited, or but still pulls it off in a sense, like where it's like he's learning and I'm learning at the same time. Maybe that's what I was trying to get to with the back and forth. But that they have a lot more in common with any host, not just me or not just my podcast. You have a lot more in common. And then the best part would be is this: when you hear the people from different walk of life tell these stories, then you find commonality with them. And hopefully, I mean, it leads the listener down a path where it's like, hey man, you know what? I think I can do something like that too. Or and I just mean like starting a podcast. I mean like whatever people's experience are and how they find how they find themselves where they're at now, doing whatever it is they do. I mean, they all started somewhere. They all started somewhere.
For sure.
That's awesome. And we are definitely going to link
all your stuff.
All your stuff in the show notes.
Beautiful. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And all of those things. But this, I honestly, I wanted to make this the first episode. And if anything, we've joked around a couple of times. It's like, this is a whole new format because this is the first episode where we wanted to have conversations outside of the things that we just normally talk about. And we honestly want to have more conversations. And for years, it's been fitness, it's been food, it's been contests, it's been, honestly, like 95% that. And a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I really just want to have more conversations and talk about other things.
For the exact reason that you said, we're all like so similar as humans. We're all human. We're all going through a very similar experience half the time, and we're all connected in so many ways. So more conversations with more humans that we can all connect to and relate to.
So this is the first of so many conversations to come about so many different things on our podcast.
In this new format.
And in this new format.
Hey, I'm glad I can be the first for sure. And hey,
we're
doing away with seasons, right? We're not doing the seasons thing.
No, I think this is season 12.
Well, because we did say no more seasons. We're seasonless. Remember you said that?
Then I did the math.
But I know he's such a math person. But I love that it's like the first episode. Not only it's you, which is so special, because again, you guys have known each other for so long. I've known you
from day one.
From day one, literally. Yeah. But also, like, it's kind of the opposite, even though the way we diet and the way we prep and the way we train is very unique, right? It has a ton of flexibility. I love that the first episode is about food and beer and music and life, because, we say it all the time, like, we're not robots, like, we're human. Yes, we have goals. We want to lose weight. We want to look good. We want to be healthy, but it's like, we also want to live our life, right? And it's
definitely,
that's part of it. So it kind of goes.
You can still pursue fitness inside of whatever other things you've got going on. And if you are, a beer enthusiast, beer can certainly be programmed into anybody's diet. We've done it multiple times. And honestly, but we do want to have a lot more conversations like this moving forward with so many different people. And I am glad that we finally got you on our show.
Long overdue, but well worth the wait, I think. I don't know.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you for being on our show. It is 10:45. So for those of you that think that we streamlined this and it's super convenient for everybody, it's like, this is the kind of thing that honestly is when you're listening or when you're watching and you see that people are coming together to have a conversation about all these different topics, it's outside of the norm or the normal working hours, right? It's we do these because we enjoy doing these, and if you can find something that you enjoy, I hate when people say that you'll never work a day in your life. It's more
you're gonna work more.
It doesn't feel like work because it's something that you want to do, but you end up doing a lot more of it.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that said, Ed, thank you for being on our show.
No, thank you both. I appreciate both of you guys, man. This is, and I know that maybe the length of this episode is probably, you could attribute that to the fact that it's been a minute since we've just chopped it up in general, and there's so much more we could discuss. But I'm like we gotta bring people into our world before they start getting, like you said earlier, John Cena or Ric Flair.
You never know where this could have gone.
You don't know where. You don't know. There's so many other stories, but no, I appreciate you both for the opportunity. And not only that, I appreciate you both sitting with me in the early days, and even, you know, recently within the last year and a half, I think when I came up to see you guys.
Yeah.
You guys have always made time for me, always welcomed me in. You guys do a great job with everything around you, including your family. Shouts to Junior, shouts to Bree. Yeah, man. I mean, you keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Thank you. With that said, for those of you that do the like, comment, subscribe stuff, do that because that helps the algorithm. So for everybody else, peace out.
Bye, guys.